Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
OK. Bon matin à tous et merci de vous être rejoints à nous. Hier, j'ai déposé le budget de 2021 à la Chambre des communes. Aujourd'hui, j'aimerais me pencher sur certains éléments clés ainsi que sur la stratégie sur laquelle il repose. Our budget, our plan, meets three fundamental challenges. The first is conquering COVID. That means buying vaccines and supporting our care systems. It means providing Canadians and Canadian businesses with the support they need to get through these tough third wave lockdowns. Second, we have to punch our way out of the COVID recession. Over 500,000 Canadians are still laid off or working fewer hours than pre-pandemic. We need to ensure that those lost jobs are brought back as quickly as possible. Third, we need to build a more resilient, more fair, better, greener Canada. We'll do that by investing ambitiously in green transition, in social infrastructure such as early learning and childcare, student grants, and income top-ups for low-wage workers. Let me emphasize a few essential points. Our budget will create, in total, nearly 500,000 new work and job opportunities for Canadians. We're going to hit our throne speech target of adding 1 million new jobs by the end of this year. This budget makes a historic investment in early learning and childcare. We've been working for more than 50 years to get it done. Quebec has already shown the way, and this time the rest of Canada is going to get it done too. We're making an investment of $30 billion over 5 years, reaching $9.2 billion annually in permanent spending. And we have a goal. Within 5 years, families everywhere in Canada should have access to high-quality childcare for an average of $10 a day. We know that young Canadians have paid a very high price to keep the rest of us safe. We won't allow them to become a lost generation. That's why we will invest $5 billion over 5 years in Canada's youth. Comme j'ai dit hier, les travailleurs à faible revenu au Canada travaillent plus fort que n'importe qui d'autre au pays pour un salaire moindre. Nous proposons d'élargir l'allocation canadienne pour les travailleurs et d'investir 8,9 milliards de dollars sur 6 ans en soutien supplémentaire aux travailleurs à faible revenu, ce qui permettra d'offrir un complément salarial à environ 1 million de Canadiens supplémentaires et sortira près de 100 000 personnes de la pauvreté. Small businesses are the heart of our cities, towns, and villages across Canada. They have been badly hurt in the past year. That's why we're going to launch a new Canada Recovery Hiring Program, which will run from June to November. We will also invest up to $4 billion to help up to 160,000 small businesses buy and adopt the new technologies they need to grow. And we will encourage businesses to invest in themselves by allowing the immediate expensing of up to $1.5 million of eligible investments by Canadian-controlled private corporations in each of the next 3 years. This will support 325,000 businesses in making essential investments. This budget is about growth and jobs, which means it's about people. It's about making concrete, targeted investments to heal the wounds of COVID, to get us all back to work, and to put Canada on a long-term path of growth, prosperity, and a clean, green future. Prime Minister, over to you.
Thank you, Chrystia. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Je suis très content d'être ici avec notre vice-première ministre et la remarquable ministre des Finances, Chrystia Freeland. Hier, on a présenté le budget fédéral de 2021. Il s'agit de notre plan pour aider le Canada et les Canadiens à traverser cette crise et pour préparer le terrain pour un retour en force. The Deputy Prime Minister has outlined what our 2021 federal budget lays out, and it covers a lot because this is a historic plan for a historic moment. So let me just say a few words about what this all means for you and your family, especially with the third wave hitting so many communities hard. Job one is keeping you safe. From continuing to secure vaccines to investing in healthcare, we will finish this fight against COVID-19. In fact, on vaccines, we've now delivered over 13 million doses to the provinces and territories, doses that are being rolled out in clinics and in pharmacies across the country. Earlier this morning, the Deputy Prime Minister and I sat down with pharmacists based everywhere from Vancouver to Corner Brook. They talked about their presence in so many communities across the country and the links that they have with neighbors and community members on trusted health advice. They are incredibly trusted as health professionals, and they've been delivering vaccinations from coast to coast to coast. We will continue to work with them and support them as they reassure Canadians, give them confidence, and mostly continue to do the essential work of getting us all through this pandemic. Everyone's been stepping up, and I really want to say to all frontline healthcare workers of all different types, thank you for the incredible work you've been doing all year, quite frankly, for this last hard push through these coming weeks and months as we get through this third wave and hopefully fully beyond COVID-19. In the last year, we promised to have people's back through this crisis. That means protecting you and your family. It also means making the right investments on what comes next. We remember what happened when the previous government cut support too quickly during the Great Recession of 2008. We won't be making that mistake. This budget lays out a plan for good middle-class jobs and a clean, resilient economy that works for everyone. From creating 1 million jobs by the end of the year to ensuring $10 a day childcare in 5 years to reaching net zero emissions in less than 30 years, it all comes down to this: good jobs, a strong and fair economy, and a healthy environment. Plus tard aujourd'hui, je vais m'entretenir avec la directrice générale de Transherbe, une entreprise de Saint-Bruno de Montarville, au Québec, qui se spécialise dans les thés et les tisanes. Notre message aux entrepreneurs est clair. On est là pour vous. En prolongeant la subvention salariale et en aidant les petites et moyennes entreprises à passer au numérique, on veille non seulement à ce qu'elles puissent traverser la crise, mais aussi à ce qu'elles reviennent plus fortes qu'avant. La pandémie a exposé des failles qui existent pour un trop grand nombre de gens. Je pense aux travailleurs qui ont du mal à joindre les deux bouts, aux mères qui doivent concilier travail et famille, et aux Canadiens racisés ou en situation de handicap qui sont confrontés à des obstacles et des inégalités inacceptables. Pendant la relance, personne ne sera laissé pour compte. On va continuer d'investir dans un Canada plus fort et plus juste pour tous. Pour terminer, avant de prendre vos questions, j'aimerais faire rapidement le point sur quelques éléments bien précis de notre lutte contre cette troisième vague. The third wave is hitting a lot of places very hard, and that includes our largest province and Canada's largest city. The best public health advice tells us the way to roll back this surge right away is to starve the virus by strictly following public health guidelines and restricting interactions with others. As I said this weekend, while people do that, we're standing up the help that Ontarians need. We're deploying healthcare staff and equipment from across federal departments to Ontario, and specifically the GTA, where the situation is most serious. We're also working with provinces and territories that have extra healthcare capacity, and we will cover the cost and logistics of getting that support to Ontario. To help stop the spread of this virus, we're boosting rapid testing, including by working with municipalities to directly deploy tests to local hotspots. For vaccination, we continue to stand ready to deploy the Canadian Red Cross to help with their mobile vaccination teams, and we'll keep providing help on everything from isolation sites to mobile health units to treatments. This third wave is tough, but together we will get through it. Aujourd'hui, je voudrais aussi parler des voyages. On continue de prendre les mesures nécessaires pour assurer la sécurité des gens, surtout en ce qui concerne les nouveaux variants qui, on le sait, sont plus dangereux. Encore une fois, je vais être très clair, c'est pas le moment de voyager. Et tous les voyageurs qui rentrent au pays par voie terrestre ou aérienne vont continuer d'être soumis à des mesures rigoureuses pour assurer la sécurité de tous. On va prolonger d'1 mois jusqu'au 21 mai les mesures renforcées qui sont actuellement en place. Je tiens également à remercier Air Canada et WestJet pour leur décision de prolonger jusqu'à la fin mai leur suspension volontaire des vols vers les destinations soleil. Our strict travel, testing, and quarantine measures are extremely important, which is why we're keeping them in place. But with international travel directly accounting for less than 2% of all cases in Canada, this is just one tool to fight the pandemic. That's why we're continuing to secure as many vaccines as quickly as possible, supporting provinces and territories on healthcare resources, and extending programs like the wage subsidy, which have been a lifeline for so many people. We have a smart, solid plan to see you and your family through this storm to the brighter days ahead. On est maintenant content de prendre vos questions.
Merci beaucoup, Premier ministre. Nous allons prendre des questions pour une durée de 20 minutes aujourd'hui, avec une question, un suivi, en commençant par le téléphone. We will be taking questions for 20 minutes, one question, one follow-up, starting with the phone. Opérateur, c'est à vous.
Merci, thank you. Please press star 1 at this time to ask a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur l'étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. La première question est de Raymond Filion de TVA. La parole est à vous.
Merci, bonjour, M. le Premier ministre. Le système de garderie d'abord pan-canadien annoncé hier, est-ce que le Québec aura droit à une compensation sans condition?
On reconnaît depuis longtemps que ça fait presque 25 ans que le Québec est un leader en matière de garderie et de centres de petite enfance. Nous savons que c'est un modèle à suivre, non seulement parce que ça crée plus d'égalité et plus d'opportunités, mais aussi parce que ça contribue directement à la croissance économique et à la réussite de notre pays. Donc, nous sommes très contents de se baser, de suivre ce modèle québécois pour essayer de l'avoir à travers le pays. Nous reconnaissons que même avec tout le travail et les investissements que le Québec a fait dans les garderies, ils peuvent toujours utiliser plus de ressources pour aider les familles et donc ils auront évidemment leur juste part de tout le financement. Nous allons travailler avec le gouvernement du Québec pour assurer les détails, mais le Québec aura sa juste part.
En suivi, Raymond?
Alors, est-ce que cette juste part va venir avec ou sans condition? Est-ce que le Québec sera libre comme l'air d'utiliser cet argent comme bon lui semble ou il y aura des conditions?
Quand on a fait des accords sur les garderies déjà, parce que notre gouvernement, ça fait 5 ans déjà qu'on investit à travers le pays pour aider les parents et établir plus d'investissements dans les systèmes de garderie. On a fait des ententes avec Québec qui spécifiaient tout simplement que ce soit l'argent investi dans les familles et dans les enfants. Parce que le Québec a tellement d'avance spécifiquement dans les garderies, il y a beaucoup plus de flexibilité. On va avoir des discussions, mais ça me surprendrait qu'on n'arrive pas à une entente assez semblable là-dessus.
Thank you. Operator, we'll now take the next question on the phone.
Merci, thank you. The next question is from Tonda McCharles of the Toronto Star. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for taking the question. Minister, if I could just go back to your remarks about the offer of help to Ontario. A couple of things I'd like to know about that. So how many federal staff have you dispatched? Given that Ontario at each time you've talked about offering help has said they just need more vaccines, what was their reply when you dispatched mobile vaccine clinics directly to municipalities?
I can say that the health ministers, Patty Hajdu and Minister Elliott of Ontario, have been in direct conversation over the course of the weekend. Our officials are engaging extremely closely on what exactly form this help will take. But as I said, we are looking across the federal government for help that we can send directly to Ontario. Provinces have stepped up. I spoke with a number of them over the weekend, and we're now working on the details and logistics of that. And as well, we are directing more rapid tests, as we said, among other things, to the provinces. We are not yet at the point of being able to make an announcement, but I can assure you that people are working day and night on establishing what the best way is to help. What Ontarians and indeed all Canadians need to know is that the federal government will continue to be there to support the people of Ontario, to support people right across the country as we make it through this third wave.
Following up, Tonda?
Thanks. I didn't hear how many federal staff have already been dispatched, but if there's a number on that, I take it. Next, I'd like to hear you and Ms. Freeland on the idea that you're seeking to work with provinces on a range of issues like long-term care, childcare, mental health, pharmacare. Minister Freeland has said today that he's already had conversations with quote-unquote willing partners. I'd like to know specifically which provinces are willing to engage with you on the child care piece and the others, and which aren't.
First of all, Tonda, from the beginning of the pandemic, we have been sharing and sending federal resources to all provinces who need them. We've made available contact tracers, for example, in the hundreds and indeed in the thousands. We've moved forward with federal supports from the Canadian Armed Forces and long-term care homes, to many other examples. But I know the health minister will be able to get you more details exactly on all the federal resources that we've already dispatched over the past year across the country. But as I said, we're always willing to do more. On your other question, before I turn to Minister Freeland, let me just say that the conversations I've had over 29 different First Ministers meetings since the beginning of this pandemic have been remarkable for the areas of alignment that we have seen. People understand right across the country that we need to do more for seniors, that childcare isn't just a moral argument anymore, it's also an economic argument, which it has always been, but is finally being recognized by the business community and by people across the political spectrum. That the need for support in our healthcare system has been never clearer than before, which is why the federal government has picked up the tabs for vaccines, why we have transferred billions of dollars to the provinces to support their healthcare systems through this crisis, and how we will continue to be there to work hand in hand with the provinces on the priorities of Canadians that, yes, indeed, we have laid out in the budget, but many of those priorities, if not all of them, are also things that we can see in provincial budgets and in provincial priority lists. There are lots of opportunities for us to roll up our sleeves and work extremely quickly on these big issues, and I'm looking forward to doing that with the provinces. Christia.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Hi, Tonda. Yes, I have had some conversations already with provinces and territories about early learning and childcare, and so has my colleague Ahmed Hussein, who is playing a central role in this work. I think before naming names, it's fair to give the provinces and territories a chance to see what we've laid out in black and white in our budget, the numbers we've put on the table. And then we really look forward to rolling up our sleeves and starting to negotiate bilateral deals with willing partners among the provinces and territories on really stepping up our game on early learning and childcare. Absolument. Oui, J'ai déjà eu des conversations avec les provinces et territoires concernant les garderies. Et mon collègue Ahmed Hussein, qui joue un rôle central dans cet effort, a aussi eu des conversations. Maintenant, on a publié nos plans. On était clair concernant nos ambitions et aussi on était clair sur l'argent qu'on est prêt à dépenser pour ce système de garderie. Je pense que c'est juste de permettre aux provinces et territoires quelques moments pour lire ce qu'on a écrit, pour penser de ça. Mais au niveau fédéral, on est prêt à commencer les négociations bilatérales concernant les garderies. Et je suis optimiste qu'on trouvera des partenaires qui partagent nos ambitions dans ce secteur.
Thank you. We'll take one last question on the phone.
Thank you. Merci. La prochaine question est de Catherine Lévesque, qui est de la presse canadienne. La parole est à vous.
Oui, bonjour Mme Freeland, bonjour Monsieur Trudeau. Monsieur Trudeau, je voulais juste revenir sur les garderies et les commentaires que vous avez faits à mon collègue Raymond Filion. Quand vous dites que Québec aura droit à sa juste part du 30 milliards de dollars, est-ce qu'on en comprend que ce sera au prorata, donc que Québec aura environ 6 milliards de dollars? Et aussi, sur les conditions, vous dites que les ententes précédentes spécifiaient que cet argent devait aller aux familles et aux enfants, donc j'en comprends qu'il y aurait des conditions, là, du moins certaines conditions rattachées à ça. Est-ce que vous n'êtes pas en train de vous magasiner une chicane avec Québec?
Au contraire, toutes les conversations qu'on a eues déjà, et Mme Freeland peut plus en parler, avec le Québec ont été extrêmement positifs, même avec la situation de leadership que le Québec a depuis longtemps en matière de garderie. Ils peuvent toujours utiliser plus de ressources, mais ils ont tellement d'avance sur les autres provinces que on s'attend pas du tout à ce que chaque scène de ça aille seulement dans les garderies. Il y a aussi d'autres besoins pour les familles québécoises qui sont là. Je réitère notre ouverture, notre flexibilité et notre reconnaissance envers le gouvernement du Québec et plusieurs gouvernements du Québec au fil des années qui ont démontré ce leadership. Et je sais que en conversation directe avec la province dans les jours et semaines à venir, on va pouvoir s'entendre. Notre but, c'est d'assurer que les familles ont les ressources nécessaires pour pouvoir réussir. Et je sais que c'est un grand but pour le Québec aussi. Christia?
Non, j'ajouterais, évidemment, je suis d'accord avec le Premier ministre, j'ajouterais seulement que c'est une bonne nouvelle pour le Québec, parce que le Québec a fait ça sans vraiment appui du côté fédéral. Maintenant, le fédéral sera là aussi. C'est pour le Québec de répondre, mais je suis vraiment optimiste parce que c'est le Québec qui sera le modèle pour le reste du Canada.
Merci. On va maintenant passer au plancher. Première question. David?
Pardon, j'ai pas eu de...
Pardon, Catherine en suit. Désolée. My bad. Vas-y.
Oui. Donc, voilà. Si vous pouviez juste en fait, répondre à savoir si la juste part du Québec, en fait, ça représente le prorata. Et j'ai une autre question sur les restrictions de voyage. Donc, on comprend que ce sera là... dans le fond, le fait que les transporteurs aériens ne permettront pas d'aller dans le sud, ça s'est prolongé d'un mois. Par contre, on constate que vous n'avez pas nommé Transat ni Sunwing. Je me demandais si vous n'avez pas accepté de prolonger ces mesures-là. Et si oui, pourquoi? Et est-ce qu'on peut s'attendre peut-être à une entente sous peu là, avec ces deux autres compagnies à ce sujet? Merci.
Ben, comme vous savez, Catherine, il y a plusieurs mois, tous les transporteurs aériens au Canada ont annoncé qu'ils allaient suspendre jusqu'au 1er mai. Il reste encore quelques semaines à ce niveau-là et je suis certain que des discussions se poursuivent.
Hi, Prime Minister. Your budget puts a considerable amount of money for childcare on the table. I'd like to know, will provinces, in rolling out their childcare plans, will they have to put extra money on the table as well If so, how much?
The arrangement with each province and territory is going to depend on the bilateral negotiation, and it will vary from province and territory. We've just heard a lot of questions about Quebec, and people have pointed out rightly that Quebec already has an extensive system of affordable early learning and childcare, and there's huge variety across the country. So each bilateral negotiation is going to be different, and each relationship is going to be different, and we're going to actually negotiate. You know, we understand that this is work being done directly by the provinces and territories, and I think it's going to be important for us to listen and to hear from them where they see the needs. And we're sincere about really wanting to roll up our sleeves and work together and understand province by province, territory by territory, what is needed. Having said that, let me also say our goals, although Canada is very, very diverse in the provision of early learning and childcare and pretty much everything else, our goals are now national. And what we're saying is every Canadian parent, 5 years from now, everywhere in the country, should have access to affordable, high-quality early learning and childcare for an average of $10 a day.
Thank you.
Prime Minister, you were asked this morning, but I was waiting for a little more clarity on this. Anyone over the age of 40 in Ontario is now eligible to go to a pharmacy and get the AstraZeneca shot. That's you. Will you do that? And once you're vaccinated, do you plan to attend the G7 in the UK in June, which looks like other leaders are going to attend? Are you going to be there, or are you going to Zoom in?
My intention has been, as I've said many times, to get vaccinated as quickly as my turn comes up. With the news that AstraZeneca is now available for 40 and up in Ontario, my office and I are busy trying to book appointments, and we will be sure to invite everyone along to help encourage others to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. I'm looking forward to that happening, and we'll let you know as soon as we've concretized the plans for that. In regards to the G7 in June, I'm certainly hopeful that we'll be able to attend in person. I know there are continuing to be restrictions and concerns, but as we get closer to June, hopefully it'll become clear that I will be able to attend in person. But we're going to make a final decision when the time comes. D'abord, comme je dis depuis longtemps, j'ai très hâte de me faire vacciner. J'ai toujours dit que dès que les règles permettraient que quelqu'un dans mon groupe d'âge se fasse vacciner, je le ferai. On essaye maintenant, on est en train dans le processus d'arranger un rendez-vous dans une pharmacie pour avoir une dose, ma première dose probablement d'AstraZeneca, j'espère AstraZeneca, pour encourager tout le monde de faire de même. Et dès qu'on a plus de confirmation, on va vous laisser savoir pour qu'on puisse passer le message à travers tous les Canadiens de se faire vacciner avec le premier vaccin qu'on vous offre le plus rapidement possible. Deuxièmement, au niveau du G7 qui aura lieu en Grande-Bretagne au mois de juin, j'espère pouvoir y aller en personne, mais nous allons évidemment suivre les règles de santé publique ici au Canada et on va faire tout ce qui est nécessaire pour garder tout le monde en sécurité.
Bonjour, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Monsieur Trudeau, Madame Freeland, sentez-vous libre de répondre les deux? Comment pouvez-vous justifier d'imposer un système pan-canadien de services de garde quand, au même moment, il n'y a rien là-dedans pour les transferts en santé pour les provinces? C'est une critique qu'on a entendue depuis hier. Pourquoi ne pas aller là? Pourquoi ne pas essayer d'avoir fait un geste dans ce sens-là, alors que c'est ça que les provinces vous demandent? Ils vous disent notre système de santé a de la difficulté, on n'est pas capable d'avancer. Alors pourquoi pas être allé là?
D'abord, on est allé là, Louis. Ça fait des mois et des mois qu'on transfère des milliards de dollars aux provinces et territoires pour aider dans leur système de santé, avec dans ce budget un 4 milliards de plus directement au système de santé, avec 1 milliard de plus pour la vaccination. On a signé une entente de 19 milliards de dollars. On a fait des transferts. On est en train de payer les vaccins. On est en train d'appuyer les provinces à bien des niveaux pour ce moment de crise, parce qu'on comprend que les besoins sont énormes maintenant et c'est des besoins additionnels extrêmement lourds pour les provinces. Et donc, on est là et on a été là depuis les débuts et on va continuer d'appuyer les provinces et le système de santé à travers le pays. Ce que j'ai toujours dit, c'est que dans cette pandémie, on a appris beaucoup de choses sur le Canada et sur des maillons faibles dans notre système. Et nous reconnaissons que ça va prendre plus d'investissements et plus de transferts du fédéral en matière de santé vers les provinces. C'était la conclusion de notre rencontre particulière là-dessus au mois de décembre. Par contre, ce que j'ai toujours dit, c'est que pendant que nous sommes là pour aider dans le moment avec tout ce qui est nécessaire pour passer à travers, nous allons attendre que les choses se rétablissent un petit peu, qu'on soit passé à travers cette tempête qu'est la pandémie de la COVID-19 pour négocier de quoi va avoir l'air les transferts récurrents long terme pour le long terme. On est dans un moment extrêmement court terme maintenant où les investissements pour remettre l'économie et les Canadiens sur pied ont eu la priorité. Mais j'ai bien hâte de continuer notre partenariat avec les provinces sur les investissements en santé et nous allons augmenter les transferts en santé pour le long terme une fois qu'on aura passé cette pandémie. We have been investing directly billions of dollars in supporting healthcare systems across the country. From the $4 billion recently announced as part of this budget for general transfers to healthcare to an extra billion for the vaccine rollouts to a $19 billion agreement last fall that is there to support the provinces, including lots for health systems, to paying for vaccines, to working hand in hand on the rollout. We have been there to support provinces and territories in the extra costs they're facing because of this pandemic on healthcare. We made a promise to have Canadians' backs, and that's exactly what we're doing, including by transferring billions of dollars to the provinces to help with their healthcare systems. At the same time, we recognize the weaknesses and the gaps that have been displayed by this pandemic, particularly in areas like long-term care for seniors, that are going to require all of us to continue to step up. There have been surgeries put off. There have been extra costs on the provinces that we know need more stability going forward. So we have committed that we will increase transfers to the provinces, recurring and long-term. But the decision about how much and how to exactly do that, we have decided needed to wait until we're through the worst of this crisis. We are there to support Canadians through the provinces with massive transfers right now in this crisis on healthcare, and we look forward to discussions about how we can make more investments for the long term, but our priority right now is getting through this pandemic first, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
You can go ahead, man.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Trudeau. Man Hamidi with the Canadian Press. Your government has been blamed for not implementing quarantine rules earlier and allowing variants of concern to flourish in Canada. Why are we still allowing flights from countries with high rates of COVID-19 and variants of concern such as Brazil and India to fly into Canada?
Well, allow me to correct the record a little bit. From the very beginning, from March 2020, over a year ago now, we brought in some of the toughest, most stringent travel restrictions of any of our peer countries around the world. From last March onwards, a mandatory 2-week quarantine has been in place for anyone arriving in Canada. And that is something that has been extremely effective in limiting the importation and therefore the spread of COVID-19. However, as we saw the emergence of variants around the turning of the new year, we increased significantly our restrictions at the borders, demanding, for example, a pre-departure PCR test to demonstrate that the travelers are negative for COVID when they get on the plane to come back to Canada. On top of that, as time rolled on, we added even more measures. It is now mandatory to get a testing on arrival as well. There is quarantine for 2 or 3 days while you wait for that test result in government-approved accommodations for air travelers, and everyone does follow-up tests while they quarantine in with an approved quarantine plan once they arrive. We have been very firm and vigilant on these measures, but of course, as I always say, we are continuing to look at more, and I have asked our officials to look carefully at, for example, what the UK has done very recently on suspending flights from India, what more can and should be done to ensure that we are not getting cases in from overseas. The measures that we have put in place are limiting significantly and severely the importation of travel-related cases, but we will continue to look at the best science and the best measures that we can do to make sure that the borders continue to be a protection against spread of variants and COVID-19 inside of Canada.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister Trudeau and Deputy Prime Minister Freeland. Thank you for taking our questions today. I wanted to ask you about military sexual misconduct. It was mentioned in the budget. We're now 2.5 months past when the story broke. We still don't have any details about what the probe into this is going to look like or whether the watchdog mentioned in the budget will be reporting to Parliament, but Liberal MPs did shut down the committee that was investigating this. I'm wondering if you're concerned about the message that sends to the victims of sexual misconduct, that there hasn't been action yet, and if you can give us any kind of a timeline or a benchmark for action on this.
The message is very clear. No one should ever face harassment, intimidation, or assault while serving in the military or in any other job across this country. The women and men who stepped up to serve their country deserve better than they have received in terms of protections and support over the past many decades. Over the past 5 years, we have taken significant measures to improve the processes, but it has become very, very clear that they are inadequate, that the culture change has not happened fast enough, that there are not yet the right supports for people who come forward with allegations and heart-wrenching stories of abuse and intimidation. We are taking this extremely seriously. Processes are in place to stand up new measures and new approaches. We recognize that the time is not just for discussion, the time is for action, and that is exactly what we are moving forward on, why the committee independently decided to move forward with moving on its report and getting action going. But as also was mentioned, there are measures in the budget that directly target that, and I will turn to Minister Freeland to further expound on it.
Thank you for the question, Mercedes. And, just to say, we did put that in the budget because we recognize how urgent the challenge is. It's very important for our government that all Canadians, no matter where they work, need to be safe from and free of sexual assault and sexual harassment. And that is going to be a priority for our government. And, we are putting in place really important measures to make sure that that's the case.
Une dernière question au plancher.
Suivi sur le projet de loi 21 ce matin, sur la loi 21 en fait, il y a un tribunal qui l'a maintenu, suspendu certains articles quant au cégep anglophone, les élus de l'Assemblée nationale. J'aimerais avoir votre réaction. Est-ce que vous voyez une porte ouverte s'il y a appel pour une intervention du fédéral? Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire là-dessus?
Écoutez, on a vu qu'il y a eu une décision qui a été rendue aujourd'hui. J'ai pas eu le temps de la regarder en détail, mais on reconnaît qu'il y a un processus judiciaire en cours et nous allons continuer de suivre attentivement ces processus qui sont en cours.
À quel niveau vous interviendriez?
Écoutez, on n'est pas là. On va regarder le processus qui se déroule comme il se doit.
Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui m'a fait la conférence de presse aujourd'hui.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.